Hey guys, my name is Tim and I'm the Master Mechanic at Zeiten BMW Mobile Services, and today we have 2007 BMW 335i with twin turbo and 54 engine. And in this video I'm going to show you how to replace the oil filter housing gaskets. Also the other gasket is oil filter housing to heat exchanger gasket. So if you do one job, do all of those gaskets at the same time. Let's get to it. First of all, we're gonna start with freeing the wire harness. It's just put your screwdriver right here and push it out. Then you'll be able to move it out of the way, and there is other three tabs right here. Just free here, in the middle, and in the back. That will allow us to free the harness later on when we pull it up. The next thing, you can disconnect this wire right here, take it out of the way, and take this cover off. There's one tab here and the other one on the other side. Also there is a water hose here for the windshield wipers, and the rubber piece right here. Then there is another holding rubber piece right there, so just slide it out. And the next thing right here is this 8mm bolt. There you go. Also we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts for the cabin filter housing. We'll remove those. Now we can move this housing out of the way. And there's the same two tabs right here for this cover. So just take it out, and the same rubber piece that holds it in place as well as right there. And also the same 8mm bolt right there that holding this whole thing together. Also, don't forget to remove all the wires attached to it, and this is it. Now we can move it out of the way. Just lift it up, free the wiring harness, and take it off. Next thing we're gonna do is to remove this engine cover. It's originally four 5mm Allen bolts, 1, 2, 3, and the other one is right there on the bottom. As usual, it's missing, so we're just gonna remove 3 of them. And take this cover out of the way. Now we're gonna remove the air filter box and this air duct right there. It's Torx 20 bolts right here. One on one side and one on the other side. After that, it's just those connectors right here. One and the other. And the air duct is out of the way. This is the push connector hose. So just push it on both sides and lift it. Free it from here. Next thing is those clamps right there. It's one here, it comes to the air filter box. So make it completely loose. That's good enough. And one is on the other side, is right here. And the next thing I would say we would do is to free the wires from its tabs right here by just simply lifting it up, but they already out of the place. Nothing else holds this air filter box, so it's on this rubber thingies in there. All you need to do is just lift it. There you go. And that's it, air filter box out. And now, before we do anything else, I want to suck out the coolant from the expansion tank. This way we will not spill any when we remove those oil filter housing and heat exchanger. The amount of coolant you should suck out should be approximately 2 liters. And first you got the liter out. Second, you open this bleeding screw and more coolant will appear. So you can continue taking it out. More coolant you suck out, less chance that you spill any with the removal of the oil filter housing. Okay, so that's about 2 liters. Let's put the screw back on. When you're going to be refilling, don't forget to take the screw out. I'll remind you. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, well, first of all, disconnect this oil pressure sensor and coolant temperature sensor, which is a little bit tight, but with the help of a screwdriver, getting those out of the way. And now we're going to remove one 11mm bolt right there of the intake manifold and 6 nuts of the intake manifold. Those are 11mm. Okay, this will give us the opportunity to lift the intake manifold a little bit and to reach the final bolt of the oil filter housing, which is right there, covered behind lots of stuff. You can't see it, it's covered by the intake manifold for now. The next thing we're gonna do is remove this 13mm bolt that holds those oil cooler lines in place. It's right there on the bottom. So that's the next thing. Definitely make sure you have plenty of towels underneath, because it's definitely gonna leak. Even though we drain the oil for the purpose of the oil change, but still I expect some oil to come out. On some years of 335, this engine, it might be not 13mm bolt, but actually I think it's Allen 6mm. But it's probably for the newer models like 2009, 2010, something like that. After you loosen it, you can definitely continue taking it out with your hands. It's not that hard. So this is out. And now I'm gonna grab extra towels to disconnect those lines. And as you can see, here it is. Plenty of oil coming out. And this even though we drained all the oil. on this oil lines there are O-rings right here. You see those guys? Sometimes they get stuck in the housing, so if they do on both of them, I would say don't touch them, just put it back in. And in my experience, those are rarely leaking. If you want to replace those, good time to do that, but not really necessary in my experience, but why not, you know. The next thing we're gonna do is remove this housing right here. I'm gonna use the E12 long socket, and we'll start with the bottom bolt. We need to remove those lines in order to get to the bottom bolt of the housing. It's just 3 bolts here, one on the bottom and one on each side on top. Okay, the bottom bolt is out. Now we continue with those two. When you're removing the housing, expect more oil to come out. I already replaced the old towels with the new ones, but yep, that's what's gonna happen. So expect that. Don't let it surprise you. If you want to, you can remove this gasket right there. It's really brittle. Try as much as you can remove it in one piece. That's the best way, so you will not have to fight the little pieces of the gasket in the housing. Yep, this is in one piece. And the next thing we're gonna do this, here's the hardest bolt right there. It's E10, and in order to remove that, well, technically you have to remove this hose right there. It's a coolant hose from cylinder head to the thermostat. It's held by two 10mm bolts, but the important thing, if you start removing this hose, 95% chance it's gonna break. Happened to us a lot, so we don't do that. We remove this bolt without touching this hose at all. I have this wrench. This is for the E10 specifically, but you don't have to have that. The regular 8mm 12-point wrench like that, let me show you. This one will work just perfectly fine, but there is a trick to do this properly. So you put the wrench right there all the way, better right here. And the trick is just make sure it doesn't go out of its way. It's a tight, tough bolt. And there you go. You see? Now it's loose, now it's safe. Because the hardest part is that you can actually destroy the bolt with this 8mm wrench if you don't do it properly. So the most important thing, and don't let the wrench angle on the bolt. When I remove the bolt, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So guys, I got this bolt out from oil filter housing. This spot right there, this basically the toughest spot. And what I'm talking about when using 8mm wrench, so you put it like this, And when you start taking it out, it might, I don't know if you can see, like it might angle like this just a tiny bit, and it's gonna snap. Like, that's very possible. So the most important trick is just to hold it flat all the time, and this way you will not damage the bolt and everything's gonna be okay. Now the next part would be taking those wires out of the intake manifold, just out of the way, and now we can lift the intake manifold just a little bit without disconnecting anything else. This is all we need. This will allow us to put this right there, leave it. Also, it's a good idea to take the oil filter out and clean the area in there, but we drained the oil and already did that, so there is just old oil filter still in there, but we're going to replace that later on. Once again, expect some oil to come out. And to prepare your magnet, I will take this bolt out with the magnet, this one with the hand. So I'll put some fresh in there, as you can see, and the oil is just nasty. And of course, make sure to clean the oil filter housing, a spot where the gasket goes, completely clean, and everything around it, because this is important for other mechanics to understand, like if it's leaking or not, if it's an old oil, if it's an old buildup. That's very important to know. So clean it all up and then install the gasket. Now we're ready to remove the oil filter housing gasket. Once again, you definitely, it's better if you remove it in one piece. That just makes life a lot easier. It's out. Now we're going to clean the surface and install the new one. There's only one way it can go in, so there should be no confusion there. And now it's time to put the new gasket in. Once again, guys, it's L-ring. With those gaskets have nothing to do with the Victor Reins being bad. They're good as well, no problem. It's just I stick with L-ring. And if the L-ring representative here want to sponsor me, I'm all for it. So we'll put it right there. Make sure it sits flat. And if you guys don't have a magnet, I would start with this medium sized bolts. Like all the bolts from the oil filter housing a different size, as you can see. This is the middle one on top, this is one at the bottom, the shortest one right there, and the other one goes right here. So if you don't have a magnet, put the bolt in here, slide it over, find the hole, and there you go. That's in place. And now we're going to install this one, the bottom one. This is usually the one I start with while the housing's moving, you can put it in as much as you can with your hands. Clean the thread, it will make the job way easier. So the way I like to do it, I'll put almost this bottom bolt almost all the way in as much as I can, and then just bring it back where it's supposed to be. Now we can tighten the other two to make the oil filter housing even. From here it's already gonna be kinda slow tightening. You kinda want to tighten them all at the same time just to make the gasket sit fine. What you can do is slowly tighten the one side and then the other. Here I feel the tension on the wrench a little bit, so I'm just gonna apply a little bit here on the other side and just a tiny bit in the middle, and we continue right here. And now it becomes really tight. Now we're going to use just a regular wrench because I definitely want to feel it. Good. Just the final one. So the oil filter housing is in place. Now we can put back the intake manifold. I'm not going to bolt it on just yet. Now we're ready to install the other gasket. Right there, it's oil filter housing to heat exchanger, oil cooler, are the name of it. That's how it goes in. Right. Now let's put this one back. Okay, and now all the bolts are in their threads. Same rule applies here. You kind of want it to make it tight all at the same time. So couple turns here, couple turns there, and over there. Now everything's in place, and just final turns. Now we can clean up a little bit those oil lines. guys in place. Just make sure they're all the way up. And once again, it's 13mm bolt right there. The lines will sit because of the O-rings. Kind of tricky to put the bolt back in, but it's definitely possible. That's enough. Final touch of cleaning. And this part is all done. Oil filter housing gaskets, I would call them both oil filter housing gaskets, are replaced. And connect back the coolant temperature sensor. And now we're gonna put back the bolts for the intake manifold. I mean, one bolt and 6 11mm nuts. And with those, I usually start with just putting the bolt a little bit in the thread, then tighten the middle one and the last one, and then go back here. To be honest, it doesn't really make a difference. The pattern, you're gonna tighten it, not a single bit. Intake manifold is back in place. We'll put the oxygen sensor wiring harness back there, and the soil pressure sensor is plugged in now. So now we're ready to put all the plastic back in its place. I'll start with the engine cover. Just make sure everything aligns perfectly fine. Also, don't forget to tighten this bar. It's 14mm. This one is 11. You can put the cap back. Just turn it clockwise. Next thing I'm going to install is the air filter box. The way to do it, I first going to put it into the air intake boot, one of them. then to the other one. And now it snaps back in place perfectly fine. Now we're gonna tighten those boots, those clamps right there. This is all good. Now we can put the wires on its spots right there. This is where they belong. This is where they're supposed to be. Just like that. Next thing will be air duct for the air filter. Those are Torx 20 bolts on each side, just 2 of them to hold this air duct in place. Now we can do this piece right there. The way to do it is you align those marks just in the middle, just angle it like that. There is little tabs in there on this big plastic piece that go under the weather strip. So we lock the wire harness in here, the big one. So you push it as much as you can, and then you lift this side, slides in, and this one slides in. And now it's all in place. The last piece, you just slide this thing back in here. Make sure that your wires are all good. You can connect this one right now. Put this rubber piece in place. Now it's 8mm bolt that holds it on this side. So we're gonna install this first. And do the same on the other side. Put the wire back where it belongs. And this rubber piece right there. Okay, all good. Now we can do the cabin filter housing. Now the last pieces, we'll put this plastic cover back in place. So the rubber goes first, then route the water hose, the windshield wipers. That's one side. And that's the other. Okay, so everything's done, and now we just need to refill the coolant that we sucked out. And remember to take this plug out because if you don't, most likely it will not take the whole amount you sucked out. So all the fluids are in. Now we can close the plug, and now we need to activate the water pump to start the bleeding procedure, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, after everything's complete, I left the cap open on the expansion tank. Return the heater to the max, this to the red, turn the AC off, and now you step on the gas pedal for approximately 10 seconds all the way down. And now it's started. We'll leave the door at the same spot. I'll just close it a little bit because it can disrupt the cycle. And what you should see, it's hard to see in here, but the water running through this hole, you can hear it, you can see it. It's gonna happen for the next 12 minutes. And well, I usually start the car after 6 minutes and let it run for another 5 with the cap off, and then we can close the cap and you're good to go. So the system bleeding is still in progress. It's been approximately 6 minutes, so now I'm ready to start the car. I'll let it idle for another 5 minutes with the cap off right here, and then I can close it and it's all good to go. So this is it, guys. The oil filter housing gaskets, both of them, I call them both of them oil filter housing gaskets, replaced. Everything's good, everything's clean, no leak anymore, and this is all you need to know. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments below. Thanks you guys for watching. See you next time.